Are your songs too high in your song service? Do you feel like you're about to shatter some glass? Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe your songs are too low, so low that you can't even reach some of the notes very comfortably. Well, in this video, I'm going to show you how to fix that in hopefully a very simple way. Welcome to WorldCFMMusic. Alright, so now that we've gotten through all of the basic song service lessons for piano, drums, and guitar, I'm going to move into some other videos that will help you in building your song service, alright? So for starters, I want to go over tackling the challenge of singing a song that's too high or too low. I like to bring in songs fairly often, and a lot of times I'm faced with the challenge of singing a song, and many times for me it's too high. And the reason why is because I have a little bit of a lower voice, I have more of a bass baritone type of range, meaning I like to sing those low notes, whereas a lot of the songs that I bring in are often sung by tenors, males who have a much higher range, and so it's really challenging for me to sing these songs. And so what I had to do is I had to learn how to transpose, is what the term is called, or how to change these songs to a more comfortable key. Now, what you'll notice, and if you pull out a piece of sheet music, is that each song that we sing, it has a select grouping of chords. And those chords are always related to each other. And so it's technically called chords within a scale, all right? A lot of times it's called a major scale. If you're a musician, you'll know what I'm talking about. But it's like a family of chords that stays together throughout the whole song. Now, for the most part, songs won't deviate from more than 3 or 4 chords at a time. Sometimes you have one extra chord thrown in there from time to time, but for the most part, songs will generally cycle through 3 to 4 chords through the entire song. Now, if your song is too high, you want to drop it, okay? So think of it in terms of your alphabet. A is the first, and then you're going up the alphabet, if you will, through G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So if you want to drop the key that you're in, say you're singing a song in the key of G, you want to drop it, you want to go back, all right? You want to go back down, if you will, say to the key of F, all right? So what I've done is I've created a chart that you can use as basically a cheat sheet, if you will, to help you transpose your songs, all right? So, case in point, if you're singing a song in the key of G and that's a bit too high, you can move down to an F sharp, which is called a half step drop. And the only thing about that is you'll notice there's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and there's also some of the in-betweens, right? C sharp, E flat, F sharp, A flat, B flat. Well, these ones I tend to stay away from. And the reason why is if you transpose your song to one of these sharps or flats, it can be a little bit more challenging to play, especially for newer musicians. And so if you have a group of experienced musicians and you want to transpose it just slightly, then by all means you can transpose it to whatever key you want to, including the sharps and the flats. If you're dealing with newer musicians, I do encourage you to just stick to your regular A, B, C, D, E, F, or G. That way the chords that are played within those scales are a lot more comfortable or easier to play, okay? And so I can say that that's what we do here in our church in Santa Fe, is I'll generally bypass the sharps and flats and I'll move to something that is more comfortable to play. Personally, I play guitar and lead songs at the same time, so it really helps if I'm really comfortable with what I'm playing instead of trying to focus on what I'm playing and try to lead songs at the same time. That can be really challenging. So just a little side note there, just be cautious with where you're transposing it to and knowing what kind of musicians you're working with, all right? So with that, I want to explain how to transpose. So here you see the chart just to my right. Now what you'll notice is up at the top, you have a column titled tonic, all right? Tonic is the root chord of whatever your song is in. Now this is important to identify because it will determine the family of chords that you are working with. So you might be asking, how do I know what key my song is in? The easiest way to identify that is look at the very first chord, whether it's an intro or whether it's the first chord that's with the actual lyrics of the song, or you can go to the very last chord. A lot of times the song will do what's called a resolve or basically coming back home to its original chord, all right? So that's how you identify what key your song is in. Now, once you've identified what key your song is in, you're welcome to reference the chart here to my right, because what you'll notice is the family of chords that I've mentioned should be consistent with that row just to my right. All right, so for example, if you have a song in the key of G, you'll notice many times that there's a C chord, a D chord, an E minor chord sometimes. Those are very common chords when you're singing songs in the key of G. Whereas if you're singing a song in the key of F, a lot of times you'll see a B flat chord, you'll see a C chord, you'll see a D minor chord. And so, just be careful to recognize the key of the song before you go to transposing, all right? If you don't have that down, it can kind of make it messy, if you will, all right? So the next thing that I would encourage you to do is when transposing, transpose in smaller increments, all right? Don't try going from a G to a C, which is a really significant jump. Basically, each line in the chart represents a half-step movement, all right? If you're going lower on the chart, that means you're going higher up. If you're going up the chart, that means you're going lower down, all right? And so move it, I would say a whole step to the next, whole chord, if you would call it. So if you're going from a G, go down to an F, you can skip the F sharp. And so the next thing you want to do is you want to be careful to keep your transposing consistent with what chord you are working with, okay? So you'll notice at the top of the chart, there's also numbers, okay? These numbers are tied to the number of the chord in that particular scale. So your G chord is your number 1 chord, whereas your C chord is your number 4, your D is your number 5, your E minor is your number 6. And so it's important to identify what number chord you're working with, because you want to transpose for that particular column, okay? So again, for example, you're transposing a song from G to F. You want to identify, okay, my G chord is my number 1 chord, so I'm moving to an F or a whole step down. Then what you want to do is you want to keep it with the number 1 column. So G goes to an F, all right? Whereas if you're working with a C chord within that G scale, you want to drop that. You'll notice that that C chord is in the 4th column on the chart. So you want to move the C chord to that same 4th column chord, but of course 2 half steps lower, which in this case would be a B flat, okay? So if you have a D chord in your song, that's in the key of G, of course, you want to move that a whole step lower. That's going to jump down to a C, all right? Same thing, if you have an E minor, that's going to jump a whole step down to a D minor, okay? So it's important to keep it consistent with the number value that chord represents within your song, all right? If you don't do that, your chords are going to be all mixed up, and when it comes to playing the song, it won't sound right. It'll be very confusing. So it's important to stay consistent in moving your chords evenly, okay? Now, once you have transposed your song, of course, you want to make sure your chords stay in the position that they were in. And just as another little side note, when you're typing out a piece of sheet music, it's kind of like typing out a poem. You're writing it out in verses or in stanzas, and so songs have breaks that tied to time, and I won't get too deep into that. But what's really critical, what I want to mention in this video, is when you're typing out your sheet music, you want to make sure the chord is positioned above the words where it's supposed to actually be sung, okay? So if your chord is sung right on a word or right at the start of a word, put your chord value right on top of that word where it's supposed to be played. This will significantly help your musicians in knowing when to actually play that particular chord, all right? Sometimes you'll have a chord that's stretched out over a lot of words. Sometimes you'll have multiple chords being played for one word. There's just a lot of different variety of options in when chords can be played. Yes, chords are played in a specific time frame, but it's important to type it out in a way that makes it easy for the musicians to identify when they're supposed to play those chords, all right? So you've taken your song and you've transposed it. So let's say you've dropped it to a lower key, like I've mentioned, from G to F. I want to encourage you. It's very important that you go through and practice a number of times in the new key that you have transposed to. The reason why is because if you've begun to develop a familiarity with the key that it was originally in, and you go to switch it, it's not as easy for our brain to make that adjustment sometimes. Sometimes our brains default to what we're familiar with, like muscle memory. And so you want to make sure you practice the new key. That way you're comfortable with how the song now sounds in the new key, all right? And of course, if you practice the song, or once you have practiced the song and you deem it's still too high, then you can drop it even lower, all right? And so there you go. There's a brief lesson on how to transpose your songs. I hope this helps you guys out. I did this video because I've talked with a number of people, pastors, disciples in the church, song leaders who have told me our songs are too high, or I don't like singing these songs because they're too high for me. There you go. Now you have the resource that can help you to sing the songs that you want to sing, but at a level that's much more comfortable, all right? So there you go. Just a brief lesson on transposing songs. Thank you guys for watching this video. We're going to bring it to a close. Of course, as always, if any of this was not clear, or if you have any questions regarding this video, or even other questions that tie to music or song service, you're always welcome to reach out to me at WorldCFMMusic@gmail.com. That's the email address. You can also visit the website for more resources. I will post this chart in a printable PDF version on the website. That way you guys can, print it out as a cheat sheet, take it to your church or wherever and start transposing away if necessary. And that's at WorldCFMMusic.com/resources. So you're welcome to visit the site there as well. But I thank you guys for watching. I do hope this helps you guys out. More videos to come. This isn't done yet. There's a lot more material in the works and a lot of stuff that's going to help you guys out. And so also working on releasing some actual song tutorials. That way you guys can have the resources to actually implement some of these songs into your song service. So just be a little bit patient with that. I'm working on that right now at the moment. And so with that, that's it for this video. Thank you guys for liking and subscribing. And I ask you to keep sharing the news, keep sharing the news about this channel. Let other churches know. It could be a really big help, especially to the smaller baby churches, pioneer works that are barely starting off. This could be, very helpful is my hope. And so you helping spread the word is greatly appreciated in that. And so thank you guys for watching. We'll see you on the next video.